We continue now at the top of Daf Zayin Amud Aleph and Meseches Sukkah. This is Sukkah Daf 27a. The Gemara is in the middle of saying that in the Mishnah there were words missing, and it should be read as follows. It should be read to be saying that when it comes to a snack, you don't actually need to eat in the Sukkah. However, if you want to be machmir, you are allowed to be machmir. And we have a story with some Tanoim who were brought these snacks, v'amru helam l'sukkah, and they said, take it up to the Sukkah. In other words, the point is they were machmir. Ucheshenasnu lo l'Rebbi Tzadok, and now the Gemara is continuing to explain the Mishnah. When they gave to Rebbi Tzadok ochel pachos mikabetza, when they gave him food that was less than the size of an egg, natlu b'mapa, he took it with a towel. In other words, he didn't do netilas yadayim. He just took it with some kind of cloth. V'achlu chutz l'sukkah, and he ate it outside of the sukkah. V'lo beirech acharav, and he didn't even bench afterwards. And the Gemara says, "Hakabetza boy sukkah." Now the implication over here is that if it would have been a kabetza, it would have required sukkah. So the Gemara says, let us say that this is a refutation of what Rav Yosef and Abaye said. Rashi over here says, Rav Yosef said before, Rav Yosef is the one that said that it's 2 or 3 eggs, which is considered no longer a snack. Here, as long as it's a kibetza, it seems to be it's no longer a snack. Via Abaye, it's also a refutation of Abaye. Do Omar kidetoim barbe rav dehainu kibetza. The kibetza ochel hanechel bebli achasu. He said that what's considered to be a snack, the amount that's eaten by the students, which is an egg. And here, when it comes to an egg, again, it's no longer considered a snack. An egg, Rashi says, is the amount that's in one swallow, which is what the Gemara was talking about before. And so the Gemara says, no, Dilma pachos mikabetza nitila ubracha lo boy. Maybe what we mean to say is as follows: less than a kabetza, you don't need a netilas yadayim, you don't need a bench. A kabetza by nitila ubracha. But if it's an egg size, so then you need netilas yadayim and a bracha. But it could be for sukkah, even if it was the size of an egg, it's still considered a snack. It has to be even larger to be chayiv in sukkah, as Rashi over here says, ha kabetza by netilas yadayim ubracha. Aval sukkah afilu kabetza nami lo. But when it comes to sukkah, even if it was a kabetza, it could be that there's no chayiv of sukkah. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer Omer. Rabbi Eliezer says, Arba esrei seudos chayiv adam lechol b'sukkah. A person is obligated to eat 14 meals in the sukkah. Achas b'yom v'achas b'layli. You have to eat 1 in the daytime and 1 at nighttime. Rashi over here says, Yudalet seudos of a Gemara mefarish taima. The Gemara will explain the reason why Rabbi Eliezer says that. The Chachamim say there is no set amount except for the first night of Sukkot. That's the only obligation. As Rashi over here says, if a person wants to fast, we don't require him to eat meals. The point is, if he does eat a meal, he shouldn't eat it outside of the Sukkah. Except for the first night of Sukkot. The first night of Sukkot already, you're not allowed to fast, as the Gemara will explain. V'yod Omer Rabbi Eliezer, and further Rabbi Eliezer says, Mishaloacha leila yomtiv harishon. Let's say somebody doesn't eat the first night of Sukkot, Yashlim leila yomtiv ha'achron shel Chag. He can complete it or make it up on the last night of Yontiv of Sukkot. Now Rashi over here says, Yashlim seudaso zos b'yomtiv ha'achron b'shmini atzeres. This meal that he didn't eat the first night, he can make it up on Shmini Atzeres at that night meal. V'yava pisha eno b'sukkah. And even though he's not even eating in a sukkah, that counts, because on Shmini Atzeres we don't eat in the sukkah, and still that can somehow make up for this first night. Over Gemara parachala, the Gemara is going to ask, what does this line even mean? How is it that the first night you didn't eat and now you're making it up on Shmini Atzeres when there's not even a situation of eating in the sukkah? The Chachamim say, Ein l'davar tashlumin. You can't make up these things. The Alzen Emar and these kind of things, it says, Muvas lo yuchal iskon, v'chesron lo yuchal imanos. There are certain corruptions, certain things that are missing that can never be fixed, that can never be corrected. And the Gemara says, My taima de Rabbi Eliezer. What's the reason of Rabbi Eliezer that he says a person is obligated to eat 14 meals in the sukkah? Teishvu ke'ein tadura. The reason is he learns it out from the pasuk. It says you should dwell in the sukkah, and we darsh in the same way you live in your house. Madir achas b'yom v'achas b'layla. Just like a person in their house, they generally have 1 meal during the day and 1 meal at night. Av sukkah achas b'yom v'achas b'layla. So too sukkah has to be the same thing. You have 1 meal during the day, 1 meal at night. There are 7 days of sukkahs that you're obligated to eat in the sukkah. So if it's 1 during the day and 1 at night, 2 meals every single day, basically 2 times 7. That's the 14 meals of Rabbi Eliezer. The Rabbanan, what did the Rabbanan respond? Kedira, no, on the contrary, it's like your house. Madiri boy achli boy lo achel. Just like in your own living quarters, if you want to eat, you can eat. If you don't want to eat, you don't have to eat. Av sukkanami, so it's in your sukkah. Boy achli boy lo achel. If he wants to eat, he could eat. If he doesn't want to eat, he doesn't have to eat. There's no obligation. So the Gemara says, Yachi afilu leila yom tov rishonami. If the point is that it should be like your house, you do whatever you want. So why do you have to eat the first night? Even the first night, it should be something that's voluntary. So Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yehotzadok. Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yehotzadok, Nemar kan chamisha aser, benemar chamisha aser bechag hamatzos. It says over here by Sukkah's chamisha aser, that Sukkah falls out on the 15th of the month, and it says by Pesach as well, by Chag HaMatzos, it says the 15th. Ma'alahalan laila harishon chova, just like over there, when it comes to Pesach, the first night is an obligation to eat. Mikan va'elach rashus, and after the first night it's voluntary. Afkan so too over here on Sukkah's laila harishon chova, the first night is an obligation. Mikan va'elach rashus, and from then on it is a rashus. And the Gemara says v'hasam minolan. And over there, where's the source? How do you know when it comes to Pesach, the first night is an obligation? Amar Kra, the pasuk says, "Bo'erev tochlu matzos." In the evening, a person should eat matzah. Hakasav kavu chova. The pasuk is saying that it is an obligation. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, quoting the Mishnah of Yod Amar Rabbi Eliezer, and further, Rabbi Eliezer says, this is the statement of Rabbi Eliezer that you can make up the first night if you miss it, so you can make it up on the night of Shmini Atzeres. So the Gemara says, "V'amar Rabbi Eliezer arbo esrei sudos chayev adam lachol b'sukkah achas b'yom v'achas b'layla." What's even going on over here? Rabbi Eliezer is saying you make up the first night. Rabbi Eliezer is the one that says you have to eat every single night. You have to eat 14 meals in the sukkah. So the whole thing doesn't even make sense. Rashi over here says, "V'amar Rabbi Eliezer yodalet sudas chayiv adam lechol b'sukkah v'keven teviyom acharon lo b'sukkah yosef." So Rashi says, since on the last day, meaning Shmini Atzeres, you're not even sitting in the sukkah. V'im yashav bo l'shem mitzvah over al bal tosef. On the contrary, you can't even eat in the sukkah if you wanted to, because that would be bal tosef. That would be a problem, a violation of adding on to the Torah. So my hashlam of the sukkah ikahacha. So what are you even doing over here? So it's more than just the fact that it's 14 according to Rashi. The question is, if there are 14 times you have to eat in the sukkah, so how are you making anything up on Shmini Atzeres when you don't even eat in the sukkah on Shmini Atzeres? And so the Gemara says, Amar Bira, Amar Rabbi Ami. Bira says in the name of Rabbi Ami, Chazar bo Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer actually changed his mind. Rashi says, Amar Bira Shem Chacham. Bira was the name of a Chacham. It was the name of one of the Amoraim. Chazar bo Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer, he changed his mind. Eitzel Chachamim lomar she'ein l'davar kitzvah. He really held that really there is no set amount. And he also held that a person, if they want, or he held, I should say, that if a person wants to fast, he can fast, except for the first night. He agreed with the Chachamim that on the first night, a person is obligated to eat in the sukkah. And the machlokas though is as follows: Rabbi Eliezer happens to hold that you could make up for the fact if you didn't eat that first night. Just like you can make up for the karbanos. Let's say you didn't bring the karbanos of the first day, you can make up for it. So too over here, if he didn't eat that first night meal, which was an obligation, so then he could make up for it on Yom Tov Acharon on Shmini Atzeres. And so the Gemara says, Mashlim b'mai. So what kind of food is the person using in order to make up this meal that he missed, according to Rabbi Eliezer? Ilema berifta, if you're going to say that the person's going to eat bread, Su'uda diyome ka'achel, but then he's just eating the meal that he had to eat anyway on Shmini Atzeres. As Rashi over here says, Ilema berifta kolomar tomar shasudas yom tov achron shusoid belechem velifton. He's going to have bread and dip, v'tzarches hasu'uda teit hashlum and the rishon, and everything he's having, the regular meal, will make up for the meal he missed on the first day. Sudasa diyome ka'achel, my heker yeshkan, there's not even a heker that it's a different meal. There's a meal you have to eat anyway on Shmini Atzeres. Shetei l'shem suda rishona halo darko l'sarayom. It's normal that you're going to eat anyway on Shmini Atzeres, even if you say it's not an obligation. But even so, it's totally normal to have a regular meal Shmini Atzeres. So how is this a heker that he's making up for the meal that he missed the first night? So that doesn't make sense in any case. Elamai yashlim. So the Gemara says, rather, how is he going to make up for the meal he missed? Yashlim b'minei targima. He's going to make it up with minei targima. Rashi over here says, b'minei targima la'achar shesilek yaviu parparos u'ma'adanim lefanav kagon peiros v'kistin v'kaplotus mevushalos. It means to say, after they remove the meal, so after the main meal is over, they bring almost like a dessert, fruits and various other items of that type, and that's going to be like an extra thing he's eating, which will make up for the missed meal. And the Gemara continues, Tanya nami. We have Raisa that supports this as well. Im Hishlam b'minei targima yotze. If he completes it, makes it up with minei targima, then he's yotze. Rashi says, Tanya nami hachiv devahachi have a suuda lashlume. It shows that this is considered a meal to make up for things. Even though he's not going, and he's making up for it with having 2 meals of bread and meat. In other words, he doesn't have an additional meal. Let's say on this night of Shmini Atzeres, he doesn't have to have 2 full meals with bread and meat, etc. He can just have that he adds on this kind of a dessert, and that counts. Rashi says certainly if the person would have a second meal altogether on the night of Shmini Atzeres in order to make up for the missed meal, that would certainly work, but even B'minei Targima is going to be effective. And the Gemara continues, Shoal apotropis shel Agrippas HaMelech, as Rabbi Eliezer. The apotropis, which means that the person who was appointed over his palace, he was the apotropis of Agrippas, who was the king. He asked Rabbi Eliezer the following question. He says, me, my minhag generally is that I only eat one meal during the day. So can I just eat one meal, and that's going to be enough? As Rashi over here says, I'll just have one meal in the sukkah, and that should be sufficient. And we should note over here that Tosas does point out, based on this line, a little bit of a problem with Rashi's understanding, because this line in the Gemara implies that Rabbi Eliezer holds you need to have 14 meals, and he seems to be asking, well, I only have one meal a day. I don't have 2 meals a day, so what do I need 14 for? I should be able to have 7. That seems to be what he's asking. So you have to understand exactly in Rashi how Rashi understands this. But in any case, the point is, he asked Rabbi Eliezer, and he said, according to me, that I only have one meal during the day. Is it enough that I have just one meal? So Amar Lo, so Rabbi Eliezer responded, B'chol yom v'yom ata mamshich kampa parparos l'chavad atzmecha. Every single day you have all kinds of extra delicacies for yourself. V'yachsha v'ata mamshich parperes achas l'chavad koncha. Now you don't want to add a little bit for the covet, for the honor of your creator. Rashi over here says, parparos minim adonim haposchim es b'nei meyayim lios livam moshach achar apas v'yochel. It's like an appetizer. You eat all kinds of appetizers every day, and now you're trying to get out of the Sukkot meals obligations. That was the answer of Rabbi Eliezer to this apotropis of Agrippas HaMelech. V'od shoalu, and the Gemara continues, he further asked as follows, Kagon ani sheyesh li shtei noshim. What about me? I have 2 wives. Achas b'Tiveria v'achas b'Tzipore. One lives in Tiveria, one lives in Tzipore. V'yesh li shtei sukkos, and I have 2 sukkos. Achas b'Tiveria v'achas b'Tzipore. One sukkah is in Tiveria, and one's in Tzipore. Ma'u sheyetzei mesukkah l'sukkah after. Can I go from one sukkah to the other and then leave? As Rashi over here says, Ma'u sheyetzei mesukkah l'sukkah lechol v'lishan hayom bezu l'vachar bezu. I want to eat and sleep in this sukkah on this day, and then I want to go to another sukkah. Does it have to be the same sukkah throughout all of sukkahs? So Amar Lo, so he said to him, Lo, you cannot do that. Shani Omer, because I say, Kol hayotze misukkah l'sukkah, batel mitzvasa shel rishon. If somebody goes from one sukkah to the other, you actually nullify the original one that you did the mitzvah in. Rashi over here says, Bitul mitzvasa shel rishona. Afilu yamim sha'avru olav. Even the days that you already were in the sukkah before, kvar ivdon lemafreya ve'eno mitzvah. Retroactively, it's going to be that you didn't do the mitzvah properly. Kediyolef lekamon. That's what we're going to learn later on. Shatzarch leishev kol zayin b'sukkah achas. He holds you have to be all 7 days in the same sukkah. So therefore, this is a problem. And the Gemara continues. Tanya, we learned in a brayso. Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Eliezer says, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Chav Zayin Amud Beis.